Good day, everyone. When we talk about the decline of the medieval era, we often imagine a time of chaos and endings. But it was also a period of rediscovery, a moment when Europe started to open its eyes again to learning, science, and philosophy. And one of the biggest influences during this time was the return of Aristotle's ideas, which helped shape the transition from the medieval world to the early modern age. The first sign of these change appeared in the 12th and 13th century during what historians call the translation movement, in which scholars during this time from Europe began translating Aristotle's work, many of which had been preserved and expanded by Arabic and Byzantine thinkers. Translators like Gerard of Cremona and James of Venice worked hard to make Aristotle's writings available in Latin so that more people could study them. And through these translations, ideas about logic, nature, and the human mind began to spread across universities. That's why the later philosophers like Albert the Great and Thomas Aquinas took Aristotle's work even further. Albert tried to understand and explain the entire system of Aristotle's philosophy, while Aquinas used Aristotle's ideas to show that faith and reason could work together and that religion and logic didn't have to oppose each other. And because of them, Aristotelian thinking became the foundation of education in many medieval universities. But not everyone agreed with this shift. The church sometimes was worried that Aristotle's ideas could challenge Christian teachings, and there were even bans on some of his works. Yet, these debates only proved how powerful his influence had become. And by the end of the Middle Ages, almost every major scholar was engaging with Aristotle, whether to defend, question, or improve upon his ideas. That's why this revival of Aristotelian thought didn't happen in isolation. It was a part of a much larger picture that shaped by the global connections. We also have the trade between Europe, the Middle East, and Asia brought not just goods but also knowledge. And through these encounters, Europeans gained access to new ideas in science, mathematics, and philosophy. And as town grew and monarchies became stronger, universities turned into centers of discussion and discovery. Aristotle's works gave scholars a framework to study the world with reasons and logic, something that fit perfectly with the new spirit of curiosity. That's why in the late Middle Ages were also marked by crisis. Events like the Black Death shook people's beliefs and made them rethink life and death. In this time of uncertainty, Aristotle's rational approach to understanding nature became more appealing. Meanwhile, new developments in science and mathematics began to challenge some of his old explanations. But even so, his influence remained strong, because questioning him meant engaging deeply with his ideas. That's why, for me, the resurgence of Aristotle's philosophy symbolized a turning point that it didn't erase the medieval world, but it transformed it. That's why people started to think critically, to observe nature, and rely not just on faith, but also to reason. It was the beginning of a more open and dynamic mindset, one that would soon lead to the Renaissance and eventually the modern era. So the decline of the medieval era was not a downfall, it was a transition. Aristotle's idea became a bridge between the old and the new, reminding us that learning never truly disappears. It only waits to be rediscovered, and as the world grew more connected, people learned that knowledge, wherever it comes from, has the power to change societies and even reshape the course of history.